It is Calxiyn here, and before we get started today, let me say thank you to my patrons over on Patreon: Academy Professor, Edwin, Huntsman Tier, Ash, Carlton, Huntsman in Training, Emmycat, and new recruits Solly, Rooter, Flashy, Rage Factor 13, and Jess, who we decided not to try to pronounce her poor last name until she corrects us or gives us a phonetic spelling, and Wade. That is 6 $1 Patreons. Yeah. We keep getting a new Patreon every day, so you should totally be our new Patreon every day. I don't know if the streak will be broken by the time you normal people see the video, but anyway, today we are going to be talking about, I don't want to say it's a theory, it's more of an idea. It doesn't have any evidence, so it's not really a theory. But basically, the idea here is that we all know Penny. Penny is the robot, if that helps clear some of you up. I know Hunter thought that Penny and Nora were the same person for a very long time.
True story.
It is. It's true. Penny's not in the game, so I'm just gonna play as Pyrrha. Anyways, so this
not even Nora in celebration of my ignorance.
No.
Oh, Team Juniper knows.
Yeah. So basically, what the theory is, and again, this is a loose theory. There's no evidence, to support this, but there is evidence that it could have happened. Let's just put it that way. So basically, the theory here is, and I couldn't find a source for this post, it's just something that people have said, and it kind of is floating around. I'm sure there was a longer post for it I could have read off, but I couldn't find it. So, anyway, a couple people mentioned that there was an idea going around that Penny was actually Geppetto, that guy that we kind of saw for 5 minutes that, curled up his...
Half a second.
That curled up
Wasn't
his fist
even
when
animated
Penny
in
died.
3D.
Yeah, I mean, neither
Like
was
Papa
Jacques, though,
Schnee.
but never mind.
But Papa Schnee got his moment.
Yeah, so basically the idea is that Geppetto had a sick daughter named Penny, and what they did was they put the soul of Penny into the robot so Penny wouldn't die. That's basically the entire theory right there.
Which I suppose would make sense, seeing
it would be like an opposite Pinocchio, right? Because Pinocchio was a robot that wanted to become human, and said this would be a sick, dying child that wanted to become a robot.
Because, fuck robots. There's a lot of robots in RWBY. You just beat up a robot. But, what was special about Penny is that she could create her own aura.
Yeah.
Which would mean she would have to have a soul.
Yeah.
Which would mean that this is...
You just spit on me.
Which means that there's some merit to this.
Yeah, and so I think that's, again, this is a theory, but it's not a theory. You know what I mean? Theories usually have evidence. This has stuff to support it.
Maybe asking to open up a dialogue, because we saw Geppetto. If you can look at the scene in which from the third volume of RWBY,
right,
after Penny is dismembered, there's shock, shock, shock around the world.
And then there's that dude,
And then we see what people assume is Penny's creator, a large, white-haired man. Kind of looks like Geppetto.
Yeah.
And we've yet to see him. And it would be hilarious if they just, went the entire series without even talking about Geppetto.
I mean, they made a thing for him. They're gonna have to talk about him eventually, especially if we ever get to Atlas.
Unless it was just a throwaway, but I guess the idea is that there's something more to Penny's creation. We haven't seen that
Here's
yet.
that could support the theory. First, it's aura. Aura is the soul, right? And so obviously this robot had a soul, right? And usually souls, go places when they die, according to some people think that. But here's the point of that, is that we've seen a machine that can take people's auras and put them into something else, right? We saw that bot, the robot that Ozpin had, right? That had to be tested on something, right? So I don't think it's that much of a stretch to believe that maybe they put the robot on one side and then put Penny on the other side, and then use the machine. You know what machine I'm talking about, right, Hunter? It's the one where they had Amber in to try to do that thing with Pyrrha.
Yes.
Yeah, and so basically, I think the idea is that the way they tested that machine is that when they were making Penny, that's what they used, right? But obviously, here's where there's some kind of flaws. Atlas wanted to build an army of these people, so they would have to find sick, dying children. But maybe Penny was just...
Scour the orphanages! We need super soldiers!
Yeah, maybe Penny was just kind of the prototype, though. But at the same time, if you could put your soul in a robot, lots of people would want to do it. right? Because that kind of almost guarantees
singularity.
immortality in a weird way, you know what I
I
mean?
love how no one's ever questioned the idea of the singularity and immortality. They're just like, yeah, she's a robot, what do you want?
Exactly. And so I think that that's kind of what people say, not the evidence for it, but that could support it. That we have a machine that transfers auras, and we have a robot that magically gave an aura somehow, and technology that is probably from Atlas where the robot was created. It's just kind of one of those things where people are slowly piecing it together. But again, there's no evidence to suggest this so far, and another hole I think in this theory is the fact that Penny doesn't have any recollection of being human, but I thought about that too, and they could have just, you know, mind wiped her, right?
Imagine how fucked up that would be for the parent. Like, my daughter's back! Wait a minute.
But,
but
Geppetto probably would have done that, you know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
intentionally, so she could be programmed, I guess, because I feel like there was an exchange going on. I'll give you my daughter as long as she's alive, and you can program her to try to test out this new technology I'm working on. That's why I think we're gonna see her again, because I feel like there's a conflict like that in Atlas, and that's what's gonna happen, I guess, for lack of a better word. You know what I mean? Like, I feel like they're gonna bring that up, because there was such drama around the synthetic persons in the first place. So I feel like that maybe part of that argument would be that Atlas, you know, took a dying little girl and then put her in the robot, and then maybe that'll be worse, almost. Especially if Geppetto kind of did that as an exchange and knew that Penny wouldn't remember him, right? Like, that's a very kind of sad sort of story arc. And it would also put into question where RWBY's, like, alliance lies all of a sudden, right? Because, you know, they're on Mistral's side so far, right? Until maybe they find out what Lionheart's doing, maybe that won't affect them. But then they get to Atlas, and RWBY sees all of the stuff that Penny went through, maybe, and, like, that Atlas is doing some shady shit, and so they're gonna have to protect Atlas eventually. Like, it's either Atlas or Vacuo that's next after Mistral, right? And so it begs the question, will the team have an adverse reaction to helping Atlas now if they find out that something like this was happening, right? Because I feel like there's a lot of potential for a plot art like this, and that's why I really like this idea. Again, it's really just an idea, even though the title says it's a theory. That's why I really like it.
Well, that's kind of what a theory is.
Yeah.
It's just a baseless theory.
It's baseless, yeah, it has no evidence whatsoever.
We haven't adopted the scientific method for this one. However, we are still talking about, you know, robot teenage girls.
I do think,
so
though,
maybe the scientific method does not belong here.
It is an open idea, though. That's kind of what I want, because a couple people asked me what I think, and that's kind of what this video is more than me crafting a theory. It's what I think of it. I think that it could open a lot of interesting dialogue between certain characters and kind of rise the tensions a little bit, especially with Atlas, right? Because imagine they want to take Atlas down a peg. They already know that Atlas was experimenting to try to build a kid army, right? Like, that was a kid army, a robot army. Like,
how emasculating would that be to be ripped to shreds by an army of
pennies? Just Penny. But that was Cinder's point in her speech, was that they, like, what is Atlas doing? And so what if, like, to make matters worse, Cinder, like, released, like, oh, Atlas used a dying girl as their vessel for their robot machine to test out this horrible scientific advancement.
RWBY's been dark as of recent, but, like, that's a whole new type of dark.
Is it dark, though? I mean, I guess it's...
Fuck yeah, it is. It's like we like, dissected a corpse. She lost her humanity. Look at all the
But they did it to
gingers.
save her, right? So it's kind of like, it's kind of a catch. You know what I mean? Like, oh, we'll save your daughter, but here's a catch. And that makes Atlas really shady, and I like that idea of continuing to make Atlas shady as shit. And yeah, so that's basically it. You guys, like, this wasn't gonna be a very long video because we didn't have to explain very much. Like, that's pretty much our entire thoughts on it, I guess. Like, how could you see this being a problem, though, in terms of, like, in the plot? Like, if they decided to add this
I just raised the question of, like, well then what exactly, this is the first time I've maybe considered this, but what exactly was Atlas doing with Penny? Because I know they wanted soldiers or whatever, but for protection, for war?
Well, I guess that's kind of what Cinder was trying to do, Rach. She was
Maybe
trying to raise that.
I was having a little moment of, what if Cinder was right?
What? Cinder was right.
I'm having. We need to
You're
end the
having
video.
doubts?
I'm having doubts.
Oh boy. Yeah, that's something else that we should do a video on in the future, is Cinder's motivation and stuff like that. Like, is Cinder correct? Because, you know, Ozpin's done some shady shit,
Are we
man.
like Salem apologists?
I don't know.
now?
Like, maybe we'll have to think about that. Because, say Atlas is doing all that, would we sympathize with Cinder all of a sudden?
A little bit. I mean, I'd be worried.
You'd be worried. Because, yeah, like, just thinking about that, I don't know, it feels, at least to me, and I know this is a weird way to say it, but I feel like whatever we find out about Atlas, like, will make us kind of be on the villain side a bit more than we are. Some people do actually care about, like, Cinder very much.
I mean, I do.
No, not like that. I mean, like, saying that
think...
Cinder is right. Like, a lot of people think that Cinder's correct because Ozpin's a creepy liar, other things, right? And so this theory would enhance that, I think, for us, right?
I mean, maybe Penny was just meant to, like, have an army to kill the Grimm. Although, I don't know, they seem
well, remember what she said. Cinder said, oh, but I don't think the Grimm can tell the difference, right? So it was almost like, it was like for secret, right? Like for assassination or something. Like for killing people, not for killing others. You know, and that's where all of this kind of comes together, is that if it'll be much worse if they decide to go this sick child route, like a couple people have suggested. Like, it would have been awful. You know what I mean? And I like that awful. I think that's a good idea. I really do. And so we don't have someone to credit for the theory because it's just something that's kind of gone around the internet right now. But thanks if you thought of it and maybe suggested it to me and I just don't remember you. Or something like that. Anyway, I think that we're pretty much done here for today, guys. It is kind of a short one. I don't know how long we've been talking for, so maybe it isn't a short one after all.
I think we're just really long-winded.
Yeah, maybe. But I really like this idea. Again, thank you guys for kind of... Some of you brought it up in the chat, so I guess you sort of suggested it. You just didn't think I would use it. But yeah, that is basically it. And thank you again to our patrons over on Patreon, Academy Professor Edwin, Huntsman, Ash Carlton, Huntsman in Training Emicat, and new recruits Solly, Rooter, Flashy, Raid Factor 13, and Jess and Wade. And yeah, that is all from us for today, guys. We'll see you tomorrow. Bye-bye!